Hello and welcome back. I'm Joseph Hoffman, and in this lesson we'll be moving on to the B section of the second movement of Clementi's Sonatina number 1 from his Opus 36. Let's check out the score to begin our analysis. Here is our page 2 of the second movement. I'd like to do some chord analysis, so I'll draw some boxes and then I'd like you to figure them out. And then 2 places I'd like you to figure out an interval from here to here and then from here to here. So pause the video. Every time I've drawn a box, just look at all those notes together and figure out what chord it is and write it in your own music at home, and then we'll look at it together. Okay, what did you get for this box? F sharp, A, and D. That makes a D major chord. And then what about here? We have a G. And don't forget about our key signature. All B's are automatically flat. So this is a G, B flat, and D. Now that's not root position, I can tell because of this fourth. So I'm going to put that D on top, and that shows me it's a G minor chord. So we had D major to G minor. Then over here, what do we have? We had an E natural. Why do we need that natural anyway? Because, you know, there's no E flat. There's no E flat in the key signature. Well, this is what's called a courtesy accidental. Accidentals are any sharps, flats, or natural signs. They're all called accidentals. I don't know why, maybe because people make a lot of accidents when you're trying to play them. They're accidentals, and this one's a courtesy because you had an E flat way back here. Sometimes in sheet music, they'll worry, I guess, that you might still think it's E flat, even though you know, dear student, that the bar line cancels the flat. So really you don't need that natural, but it's there as a courtesy. So here we have E natural, G, C. That's a C major chord. And then here we have F, A, C. What's that? That's our F major chord. And then what do we have in this box? We have C, F, A, C. Oh, that should sound familiar. There's our original theme from the A section. If we put all those notes together, what kind of chord does that make? This fourth tells us we have an inversion. I can put that F on the bottom. That gives me an F major chord. What about here? We had D, F, B flat, D. Now, since we have a D here and a D here, we can just cancel one of those. And we've got a fourth here, so let's put this B flat on the bottom. That's a B flat major chord. One trick, remember, if you have a third and a fourth, the note that's at the top of the fourth is your root. So I can put that at the bottom to show me that we have a B flat major chord there. Let's actually try playing this, because notice the fingering, 1, 2, 4, 5. Okay, so you're going to have to stretch a little bit to make that work. Try that. 1, 2, 4, 5. This is why we practice arpeggios. Okay? And let's come down here. What interval? From C to F, that's a fifth. And then from F to F, that's an octave or an eighth. And then last of all, G, B flat, don't forget the flat sign. From our key signature, D. That's a G minor chord. For minor, we always follow the capital letter with a lowercase m. So, as we learn to play this, if you'll keep these chords in mind, that's going to help you learn it all the faster. Now we noticed there were a couple of times that there were B flats. It's easy to forget about these automatic flats that are generated by our key signature. So here's a little trick that I like to do sometimes is I'll go through and circle all of the notes that I need to remember to flat, which in this song, because of our F major key signature are any notes that are a B. So I've circled that B, we can circle this B, and here's a whole bunch of B's, right? So that's B flat, B flat, B flat, and then another B flat there, and then another B flat over here. And so this can save you a lot of hassle later on. Like if you forget to flat that, you might learn it incorrectly. Another way to catch these kinds of things, other than circling them, is using your ear. Sometimes you'll hear that it sounds a little off. And if something sounds off, double check your key signature and see if maybe you forgot to put in a B flat. So if you'd like to take a moment to go through your sheet music and circle all the B flats, pause the video to do that. Otherwise, let's keep going and check out the trill. Now, you may recall from our previous lesson that when you see TR, that means to play a trill. Basically, you're going to start on the note above whatever you see. This note is an E flat, and so we're going to start on F and go back and forth from F to E flat, F to E flat. We'll do that 2 times, F, E flat, F, E flat. Once you try that on the piano, your piano using fingers 3 and 2. Just go back and forth, F, E flat, F, E flat. If you see an E flat, you're going to do the note above it and the note you see. F, E flat, F, E flat. I'm just going to write E. And then these last 2 little baby notes, D, E, which is actually an E flat because it was flatted earlier in the measure. That's called the exit from our trill, and that will lead us into this D. So it'll be F, E, D, D, ba, ba, and then it goes into the arpeggio, like this. Da, 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 okay? We'll work on that more in a minute, but for now, just try these 6 notes. I kind of ran out of room here, but after that, it goes D, and then another E flat for those 2 little baby notes. Da, 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 da. And let's actually stop there on that E. Da, 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 da. Will you try that? Good. And then there's one more trill. The trill is over this G. So can you tell me what note we should actually start on? If you said A, you're correct. The trill will go A, G, back and forth. Let's try that. And then the exit from our trill is F, G. That's those 2 little notes there. A, G, F, G, and then we land on F. So you try this trill with the exit and then stop on the F, the last note of the song. Now your turn. Use fingers 3 and 2 for the trill, and then the exit is F, G, F. Try it again. Okay, now let's go back to the start of the page and try learning the whole thing on the piano. So here we are in measure 13. Can you show me on your piano where you'd place your hand? Looks like we need finger 1 on treble C. And then if we look ahead a few notes, we see we're going to need an E flat. So I'm going to go ahead and get my finger 3 ready on that. And notice the dynamics here. We start really soft, 1 and 2. We're going to crescendo up to that forzato symbol. So 1 and 2, and then decrescendo very quickly as well. And then finger 3 has to cross over to that B flat. Okay? Now, pause the video and try that measure on your own. Try and work in those dynamics from the beginning. Then press play to go on. Now let's look at measure 14. Now, we did our analysis here. We know this is a D major chord. And notice the fingering in the score says finger 2, then 4, and we'll use 1 on this D. So play that as a block, as a blocked chord. And then let's try this next G minor chord, which is G, B flat, D. Take all 3 of those notes and play that as a blocked chord. And then practice going from D with 1, 2, 4 to G minor 1, 3, 5. Okay, get comfortable with that, and then we can play the actual notes. And then let's go one further. Then finger 3 is going to shift up to this A. So that whole measure we have. Da, da, da. Now pause the video and practice that measure on your own. Then press play to go on. So putting those two measures together, we get okay, pause if you'd like to work on that. Otherwise, let's keep going to the next measure. Now finger 3 is on B flat. And it skips up to that forzato. Dum, ba, da, big crescendo. And a crescendo. Finger 3 crosses over. Now we're on F natural. Bum, ba, 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 ba. And let's stop there. So look at, we've got this C major chord. Once again, let's use 2, 4, 1. And the reason for that is so finger 2 can just shift up here for this arpeggio up the F major triad there. So ba, 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 ba. Now you try. Remember, it's just a C major chord, then an F major triad. And then here we have these thirds going down, going down. Now that's tricky to do legato. Finger 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. And don't forget the B flat. Now you try. 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1. Try and make it as legato as you can. Now let's put that whole line together. And I'm going to keep going, 1 and 2. Now, let's look at what happens here in measure 17. We have this third on F and A stepping down to this third on E and G. And notice that slur mark. So that means we need to play it legato, but the trick is we have to lift our thumb to get ready for the next one, but hold your finger 3 down until the last possible moment so it can still sound legato. And then, to make that phrase beautiful, remember the last note of a phrase, we want to play gently, like the curly tip of that soft serve ice cream cone. To play that gently, let your wrist float up on that last note. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Now, pause the video and work on measures 13 through 18. Be careful of the fingering. Work on the dynamics. Try and get comfortable with the notes. It doesn't have to be perfect today. You're going to practice it all week long. But just get a little bit of practice in under your belt and then press play and we'll go on. Now, measure 19, as we noticed before in our analysis, it's just like the beginning. Playing this F major chord. But here things change. In measure 21, finger 2 comes all the way down to this E flat. And then we have our trill. And then that B flat major arpeggio. Remember on that repeated note, don't hammer it. Play it beautifully. Like you're petting a kitty cat. Okay, really gently. Don't hit the cat, right? Pet it gently. Okay, so watch that one more time. We have in measure 21, 1 and 2 and trill. Da, 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 da. Okay, now pause the video and work on measures 19 through 22, then press play to go on. Now, in measure 23, we have a G and a B flat, a third apart with fingers 2 and 4. And as they repeat, again, don't make them choppy like this. Try and hold them as long as you can. Sink into those notes to make it sound legato. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and... Now, let's stop there and look at this. So I had that fifth down, team, Q. And then normally I'd use a finger 2, but what does the score say? It's suggesting a finger 1. And that's really smart, because if I did a 2, I'd land with a thumb on my black key, and then I'd have to cross over from a black key, which is really awkward. When you're doing any crossovers or cross unders, thumb landing on a black key is really awkward. For chords, it's okay. It's not bad to play a black key with your thumb, but when you're doing a scale, it's very awkward. So this is really smart to switch to a finger 1 on the C, so finger 3 can do the black key, which is a lot more comfortable. And then you're set for this ending, the trill. So let's watch that all the way from measure 23. We've got these thirds, which are going to play super legato by sinking into the note as long as possible. Big crescendo. Finger 1, G minor chord, down to F. Here's the trill, getting softer to the last note. Last note of the phrase, 99.9% of the time, play the last note of the phrase, super soft, to make it beautiful. Now, pause the video and work on measures 23 to the end, then press play to go on. Now, as you're practicing this week, remember that this movement is based on triplets. So instead of counting 1 and 2 and, every beat now has 3 parts to it. We have 1 and 2 and 3 and... Okay, so when you have a quarter note, there's actually going to be 3 subdivisions inside that quarter note. Like, let's look at measure 17. Here we start with a quarter note, but inside that quarter note, the left hand's got to play 3 triplet eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2. So as you're practicing the right hand, don't cheat those quarter notes. You've got to think 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and then a half note's even longer. That's got to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 3 do. Okay? Now pause the video and on your own try to play through all of page 2, right hand alone, once on your own, then press play and we'll try it together. Now, I'd like to demonstrate page 2 of the second movement of this sonatina. You can play along with me, or you can just listen. It's up to you. I'll count 3 beats to get us ready, and then we'll start measure 13. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and trill. 1 and 2 and 3 and start soft crescendo. and 3, and you're done. There's one thing I hope you'll remember as you're practicing is to play the last note of each phrase. Every time you see one of those slurs, the last note, play it softly, gently at the end of the phrase. Great work learning the right-hand part for the second half of Clementi's Sonatina Opus 36, number 1, second movement. Happy practicing, and see you next time. It's time for Poetry Time with Scuba. Ooh, can I listen? Of course, be my guest. There once was a man named Clementi who composed sonatinas aplenty. Opus 36, number 1, his titles are no fun, but his music was always lovely. Thank you, thank you. I loved it. I realize that last rhyme was a bit of a stretch, but you should try coming up with a rhyme for Clementi, right? A rhyme for Clementi? I could think of 20.